Oh my god, curling? Quagmire?
If there is any show on TV that's gonna push the limits when it comes to adult content, that show is gonna be South Park. And of course, Family Guy. Through many seasons of the Fox sitcom, we've peeked between the sheets, on the lawn, and even at the post office as your favorite characters blended their animated colors together to make some sweet love.
Oh my god.
And why go digging through episode after episode when we've gathered all the best ones for you here and now? Time to check out some great moments where Family Guy characters actually did it. Giggity giggity.
The safety word is banana.
When Meg first started out on Family Guy, she was at the young age of 15 years old. Thankfully, the show has decided to age her over the years, so some of her more mature scenes wouldn't seem so awkward while we were watching. Just like the episode where she becomes a pop star and gets to travel around the globe.
I said more Skittles!
One of her stops is New York City for a role on Saturday Night Live. While backstage, Meg runs into guest host Jimmy Fallon, who immediately starts putting the moves on Meg.
Hey, why did you come hang out in my dressing room?
A few minutes later, the duo find themselves on the couch and making love live in front of the whole nation, all unbeknownst to Meg. Jimmy ends their quickie by turning to the camera and yelling, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night!" Naturally, Meg is upset. Can anything ever go good for her? You knew it wouldn't take long for Quagmire to appear on this list, so we figured we'd start off with one of his most famous hookups. What started out as a lower third gag quickly transformed into a full-fledged love scene. Quagmire forced himself on Marge at first, but then Marge slowly got into Quagmire and they went back to the Simpsons' home. While we were stuck with a view of the home's exterior, we heard everything going on, including when Homer barged in and an anxious Quagmire shot both Homer and Marge. One of the classic lovemaking scenes on Family Guy involved Peter and Lois in the bedroom. No matter how dysfunctional things can be in their small town, the couple always managed to find each other in the bedroom and continue their romance over the years. In a great example of visual irony, the scene between Lois and Peter was focused on how out of control the town was getting as the two dressed up for a little leather-clad action. We can see them put on piece after piece, and once the conversation is over, Peter finds out the safe word, banana. Years before 50 Shades of Grey was released, Peter and Lois knew exactly what they wanted in their private lives. You would think a hookup addict like Quagmire would love modern technology like the internet, but it always manages to backfire. There was the time he discovered adult videos online and just a single arm grew massively in size. And then there was the time he discovered phone dating apps and how quickly he could score. We were treated to a whole montage of Quagmire swiping, getting under the blankets, and repeating the process so much he practically turned into a golem, obsessed with swiping and scoring as quickly as possible. Guess the whole modern day technology thing backfired for Glenn. How would you celebrate after an intense battle on the top of Mount Rushmore, defeating Mel Gibson and preventing The Passion of the Christ 2 from getting released? You would make love right then and there. And that's exactly what Peter and Lois did. They didn't try to hide in one of the president's caverns or tunnels either. They were positioned right on top of George Washington, honoring our first president in the best way they know how. And in typical Family Guy style, we got some funny comments from the Mount Rushmore heads themselves.
Hey, Jefferson, check it out. Chick getting nailed on my head. Sweet.
Brian is one dirty dog, and we mean that in both the literal and metaphorical sense of the word. He's hooked up with all sorts of women, including an episode where we see him between the sheets with a blonde. Shortly after the intimate session, the woman reveals her husband is coming home, and the man is a tough Navy SEAL. Brian quickly has to go from the suave flirt to pretending like he's the new family dog. Pretty humiliating for the canine who loves to talk on two legs. And while the show doesn't reveal too much in the animation, we're so used to Brian acting like a human, it's pretty weird to think about so many characters hooking up with an actual dog. Stewie is one talented baby. In the episode Switch the Flip, he manages to create a body swapping device, but things get a little crazy when the characters crash into a telephone pole, and the whole city of Quahog manages to swap bodies with each other. When Lois takes Peter away for a little private time, things are about to get extremely awkward when Chris is trapped inside his body. Then at the last second, Brian enters the body of Peter and his wildest dreams come true after a lengthy session in bed with Lois. The body swapping worked in Brian's favor after all. When Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was cast in 20th Century Fox's Tooth Fairy, no one imagined one of the ways he would promote the movie would be by doing a guest spot on Family Guy. But he did, and his role was kinda odd. After Peter gets amnesia, Lois tries to entice him in the bedroom, and just before we see too much animated skin, the clip cuts away to The Rock himself holding Peter and Lois action figures. And then he emulates their bedroom adventures using the two figures in the bizarre gag. That sort of encourages you to see Tooth Fairy? Maybe? After decades of airing on PBS, everyone thought it was pretty strange that HBO picked up the rights to Sesame Street. The cable network is known for mature shows like The Sopranos, Girls, and Game of Thrones, and the addition of Sesame Street felt like an odd choice. Naturally, Family Guy responded in a way only Family Guy knew how, showing Cookie Monster and Big Bird ruffling some feathers in a visual we won't get out of our heads for a long time. Can you imagine how many different ideas the writers had to come up with before deciding on these two characters and their position? We imagine there were a ton of Bert and Ernie jokes, along with some trash can shenanigans involving Oscar the Grouch. In the episode Take a Letter, Lois gets a job at the post office, and a crazy plot ensues when she discovers a long-lost letter involving Peter's ex-girlfriend, Gretchen. Long story short, Peter and Lois make up with each other and decide to celebrate things by using opposite sides of a post office box. Things don't go quite as planned, as their crazy scheme doesn't work at all, and whoever gets mail in that unfortunate box will have to deal with a whole lot of Peter Griffin DNA in the near future.
All right, just reach in and grab it.
When Peter Griffin gains ownership over a cardboard cutout of a famous celebrity, you know things are gonna get a little weird. As in, Peter falls in love with the cardboard cutout and has a pretty graphic scene involving a steamy shower. While the aired episode featured Kathy Ireland as the cutout, the original plan was to have Michelle Obama as the star of the show. While the scene was banned from network television, we have it for you in all its glory. Peter definitely takes advantage of the innocent cardboard. Hope it is 100% recyclable. Lois and Peter are always up for a good adventure, but in typical fashion, things don't always go as planned. Take the episode where the couple decides to get frisky at a restaurant bathroom. Peter enters and Lois is supposed to follow in soon after, but a man goes inside instead. We heard some questionable sounds and then Peter comes out, clearly exhausted and tucking his shirt back in. Then we return to the table where Lois still sits. So yeah, Peter definitely got a little crazy with another man, and for the man, it turns out his female companion looks just like Peter. If you told Glenn Quagmire he needs to find a hobby, the result would probably be something similar to the Quagfest he hosted. The whole parade carnival hybrid was completely focused on intimate relations, and one revealing shot showcases a moon bounce, one where no kids are likely allowed. The moon bounce is rocking, and thankfully the Griffin family doesn't come a-knocking because the results on the inside would probably be too much for network TV. In the world of Family Guy, couples come and go, but nothing was more surprising than when Cleveland discovered his wife Loretta was cheating on him. And the biggest kicker was seeing Quagmire pop out of the bed. Even after Cleveland discovered what his best friend and wife were doing, the affair continued with multiple scenes of intimacy between the two. Thankfully, Cleveland finally stood up for himself and divorced Loretta.
We have a club sandwich, a fruit plate, and a side of hot beef steak.
Is there any part of the house Peter and Lois haven't tried to make an intimate connection in? This time around, we go down to the basement laundry room where we're pretty sure that freshly folded piles of towels will need to go through the spin cycle again. Even worse is the fact that Chris, Meg, and Brian all have to listen to their laundry room adventures in the living room just above them.
Yeah, and my hearing's a lot better, so I hear, like, suction and stuff.
It turns out Quagmire is truly a giving man. One of his biggest charity efforts actually involves the local prison. When Lois is arrested and goes to prison for shoplifting, Peter is surprised to see his best pal there. It's there where Quagmire visits and volunteers himself for some special visits with any ladies who are in need. To drive the punchline home even further, we're treated to a sitcom-style theme song featuring Quagmire.
Who else but Quagmire?
So earlier, we saw how Chris, Meg, and Brian had to listen to the adventures of Lois and Peter. Well, it was even worse for Stewie. The poor baby walked in on them and witnessed his parents in action. Yep, pretty much every child's worst nightmare. At least blankets covered most of their bodies, and Peter wasn't wearing his scary leather mask this time around. What made the whole altercation even worse was Lois trying to talk to Stewie about it the next morning. Each new season of Family Guy dives deeper into the past of many characters, and we learned a lot of revealing information on Lois in the Season 9 episode And I'm Joyce Kinney. We discover her history in the adult entertainment industry, and after she gets kicked out of church, she decides to go back and screen the whole thing for everyone in the holy place. Boy, is there a lot to see in this prehistorically set film entitled Quest for Fur. Lois gets seductive with her co-star, and the whole church ends up loving everything they see. In some cases, we don't need the visuals to get the point across. This was made clear in the Season 10 episode Quagmire and Meg. After Peter and Lois stop a newly turned 18-year-old Meg from hooking up with Quagmire, Peter finishes the episode with a story of his own. When he was 18, he was seduced by an older woman named Elaine. Peter goes on to tell the tale of their years-long time together and the way Peter was manipulated and seduced time and time again. One of Brian's longest relationships with a human was with the character Jillian. The couple first got together in the episode Whistle While Your Wife Works, and it seemed like they were between the bedsheets more than anything else in the episode. Even when Stewie tries to convince Brian to break up with her, Brian reunites and the two end the episode with another hot and steamy hookup. Yep, another human and dog scenario making us thank the Hollywood gods that Family Guy is an animation and not a live-action sitcom. All together now. One more giggity. There we go. Whew, that's out of our systems. Wow, Family Guy has definitely got away with a lot over the years. Which one was the most surprising? Any we missed? What Family Guy couple do you want to see together on screen next? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Screen Rant for more great content.